So, James, we'll start with you in regards to the spring game. I don't know how much you were locked in on what was actually happening on the field with everything else going on, but your first impressions.
Overall, I mean, it was spring games are like kindergarten graduations, and Easter speeches is not really the greatest thing in the world. Like, you don't really show everything, especially when you have them on, when it's televised on ESPN. On ACC Network. But you saw him fly around. You saw some flashes in the young wide receiver position. You saw Mackenzie Milton looked a lot better than the 2-second clip at times, but then at times he showed rust in that knee. But you also realize that he can't be touched. I saw Jordan Travis continue to look a lot better than what we saw last year. Defensively, though, on the edge we're good, but interior D-line, I'm concerned, and I don't know what our secondary is. So, but all in all, some good, some bad. A lot of it could change with the way these young guys come in and the way people progress over the next few months in summer workouts.
Hey, James, I'll throw this at you. You let me know if this makes sense. So for your typical spring game, and I actually like the way Florida State did it, because who cares who wins the game? You split up the squad. That's a clubhouse locker room thing. If there's some kind of bet going or the winner gets this, the loser has to do that, whatever. But outside of that, in terms of evaluation, I like the way FSU did it, because it wasn't, okay, we got two teams, therefore we got two offenses, two defenses, and we're splitting up our team 4 different ways. We're just going offense and defense. Therefore, for one thing, you can keep the offensive line together. Those guys need to play together. In terms of splitting up offensive linemen, taking your 3 best, having them over here, your other 2 best over here. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense when you're trying to evaluate and develop. So you at least keep the most important unit on the field in terms of cohesion and chemistry. You keep them together, number one. Number two, the thing I think of that seems to be the most valid is you see those island matchups between wide receivers and defensive backs, and they're pretty much like a game. That's the one thing that's, to me, the most like a game, is the wide receiver against the corner, and see who wins that matchup.
Oh, I said that's where you see guys like Brian Robinson did very, very well. McClain, forgive me for not knowing his name off the top, and Joshua Burrell. Guys that came in, really were eager, hungry, and kind of showed themselves. And you add, hopefully, a Destin Hill in the fall, and Parchment coming in like that. Now you have 5 wide receivers that could potentially be able to cause matchups for about 8 of your opponents, and give you some really tough looks to maybe even your better opponents. So, but what I will say with this, having as much young talent in the secondary, that kind of does also scare me, that the fact that it's 2 true freshmen and a 3rd-year player, and Robinson, who's coming up, who hasn't been fully healthy since he's been there. I will say this: there's one glaring thing that, and maybe Logan can maybe explain, because I know Logan has a little bit better relationship with the guys, that he can explain this away to me. But the one thing that a lot of other former players saw, and I'm bringing this up because you talked about the secondary, is for as much as it's been written about the gains that everybody made, those do not look like Division I football players in key positions. I have never seen a secondary that small, and the way they wear jerseys don't help them either. They're very baggy. When I came up, we wore skin tight jerseys. In fact, my jersey was so tight that I did not have to buckle my shoulder pads. I could just put my jersey on, and wasn't nothing moving. But I was a little concerned about that in comparison to what a guy like Joshua Burrell looks like and what Brian Robinson looked like. Our secondary, outside of Akeem Dent, I think Akeem Dent looks the part. Just from what I saw, that in our linebacker core concerned me a little bit as well. But you add some more key pieces in the fall in the secondary, and those should be some battles that should be fun. That should be fun, at least during August and fall camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was seeing some stuff too talked about on Twitter, James. I agree. I'm looking at the spring game now, and I was far away from seeing the guys close up in person. But during at least the spring scrimmages, I thought there was still some cats, like definitely Toafili. Some people were saying that he's gained like 10 pounds. I'm not seeing that. I don't know where that's being gained at. Maybe in the cleats they're adding in rocks or something, but body weight, no. But but most of these guys I'm watching now, definitely on TV here, some of these cats do look definitely smaller. I think it's just going to take a lot. I think things are going well in the weight room. I think guys are making some gains, but obviously they do. Florida State has looked like this the last 3 years. They just don't look the part of Georgia or Oklahoma or definitely in Alabama. It's just they weren't even that really close to that. They were kind of with them in 2017 when they faced Alabama, but right now I think there's a whole lot of work to be done during this offseason to build these guys some muscle, some weight, some football weight. James, actually having some football weight to be able to shed blocks, get off blocks, make blocks. And bring just a physical attitude too. So I was hearing the same thing too across the social media world.
James, in terms of Mackenzie Milton, you mentioned a little bit better than what we had seen, or what Logan in particular had seen being out at the live scrimmages. Before that, there were 3 throws that he made that Logan and I talked about the other day that I really thought were pretty exceptional early on. Hit a play down the right side. Defender was right on it, lofted it right over the shoulder. He had a ball down the middle, double coverage, was able to, not necessarily double coverage in terms of the way the defense was schemed, but there were 2 men there. He lofted it perfectly. And then maybe the most important or most impressive throw didn't necessarily look the most impressive, but in terms of the coordination between he and the receiver, forget who it was. Milton threw it to the pylon on his back shoulder.
Brian
Robinson.
Had the
timing. Yeah, Brian Robinson just right where he calls in the touchdown reception.
Yeah. What I'll say is, he's a gamer, and that's cool, right? I'd rather have that than not. But you got to be able to do it in so that the coaches can see it, so that you can do it. Because from the reports that I was seeing, that I was hearing, and it wasn't that he was just trash. It's just that, okay, Jordan Travis is having a better camp, which is fine as well. One report from one of the new Seminole public relations sites, Wardian 247 or Seminoles.com, even reported that his best day, he was still not better than Jordan Travis. But when the lights cut on, he looked the part. He looked extremely good. And considering now again, you don't have to get hit. You're not going to have that wear and tear. He was able to. Well, I was just looking at how he was scrambling and moving. One of the throws that really set the internet on fire, and anybody who knows me, I was actually black and high. Since people like to pick stuff, I'm pro whatever doesn't get me 3 and 6. But at the same time, it's like, if it's Mackenzie Milton, great. I think Jordan Travis with his legs gives us the best chance at this juncture right now. But he dropped back and he climbed the pocket and he threw it to Burrell. I think that might have been one of the throws you were talking about. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal throw, really, really good. We've seen Jordan Travis do that 3 to 5 times last season. They all went for touchdowns. So it's in the offense. And one of the things that I questioned was, if that works, why don't we do that more? But then I was told that last year's offense wasn't really what a Mike Norvell offense is. So I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to be able to see that more. But the fact that he was able to do it impressed me, because what I was seeing wasn't necessarily his fault, was more of our SID's fault for letting that even show. Somebody should have looked at that highlight before they put it out and said, that does not look good. Let's cut that little slip out and play the rest of it. But I think what they did in the spring game at least kind of makes teams have to continue to try to game plan for both quarterbacks, both Jordan Travis and Mackenzie Milton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was shocked by, I wouldn't say like crazy shocked, but I was a little surprised by Milton's performance because of the things that we were hearing during practices and then being in person, definitely during that second scrimmage, about how bad it was, just not connecting with receivers. Balls were being thrown short 4 yards before reaching the feet of a wide receiver or running back down the field or a tight end, and it just wasn't pretty. He had a really bad second scrimmage, and things weren't really connecting with him during the first scrimmage. So, there was some reports, like James was saying, that hearing some things that Milton was starting to get it together here, and things were looking brighter there, but it still was not on the same level as Jordan Travis. And we'd been talking about this. I've been still thinking that this is Jordan Travis's job to lose. And we see Milton, and we talked about it too, previewing the spring game. I was like, watch Milton here. Watch him actually have a pretty decent day and show out a little bit, because I feel like these kind of players like him, game managers, guys with experience, they do well. They do better with more pressure on them. They got fans in the stands. And sure enough, Milton's dealing balls that I was there for 2.5 hours, 3 hours to both scrimmages. Those balls weren't even close. And the way that he had the touch on him was beautiful. That was the Milton, that we got to see at UCF, and he performed very well on Saturday. He was making the right reads and put the ball only where the receivers could get him. Literally, I think that one of my favorite throws, I think it was to Burrell. I mean, that you got two defenders there, fit it right in the pocket there, only for where Burrell could get it. The McLean one was gorgeous too. And Akeem Dent had great coverage here. I'm watching it right now. Akeem Dent had really good coverage on it, but you can tell that he's been connecting and working a lot with McLean and building chemistry since he first arrived. That cat has been in a lot of series during the scrimmages that we got to see Malik McLean and also Burrell. So it's good to see that like a young movement too coming in through this wide receiver room, because it's felt like it's been extremely stale the last 2 years, and it's time for an overhaul, and it's only going to get better once Destin Hill and Parchment arrive.